Hello subscribers, random visitors and hordes of attractive women that love sim races. Welcome to the Gamer Muscle YouTube channel. Now, Dirt 4 came out recently, approximately 5 days ago, and we've been playing it a little bit, and I thought it was about time we gave our first impressions and general impressions of the game. So to do that, I've put a bit of a rally stage on in the background, Spain, tarmac, fields, and we're just gonna natter. So, well, first impressions. First of all, I have to say, I'm really quite disappointed with Dirt 4. I was really expecting CodeMasters to go from Dirt Rally, build on what they learnt there, and, you know, do a full game release, not something that was early access and a bit experimental, and just smash it out the park. I had faith in CodeMasters. I'd poured the wine. I'd split the biscuits, if that's what they do. And I thought they were going to do it. Unfortunately, Dirt 4, I really don't think it is actually a genuine sequel to Dirt Rally. It's its own game. I don't actually think it's a sequel to any of the Dirt games, really. It really is its own game. Now, despite it being disappointing, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's not a bad game. I just really think it doesn't capture the essence and joy that Dirt Rally did. The biggest thing when playing this that I get, the feeling I get, is that it's just bland. The tracks they've got, they've got this automatic track generator, World Supergen 4.0. I can't remember what their buzzword is for it. And the technology there is actually quite impressive. It is fairly seamless how it puts stuff together. And the tracks, considering they're somewhat auto-generated, do look really nice with that in mind. But then if you go and compare the tracks to Dirt Rally tracks, they just feel soulless. They don't have that specific character to each circuit. When you go, I say circuit, each track, when you go on Dirt Rally and as the locations were rolled out through the early access, each location feels like a genuine real place. But probably because they were based on real world places, but they have their own very unique character. Every single corner, every undulation, every bit of those circuits, give or take, has its own character to it. Whereas in Dirt 4, everything just feels a little bit samey. I mean, you've got the main different environments, like the tarmac stage in Spain, and you've got Wales and America and Australia and what have you. And each big sort of location environment change does feel quite different in that initial environment setting change, and, you know, the general fauna and stuff around you is different. And they do have general different character to those different world environments. But in terms of the actual individual tracks that you end up generating in those environments, they just, after about, I don't know, 35 minutes, an hour of driving on each environment, you kind of feel like you're just driving one place with arbitrary corners through it. And I appreciate CodeMasters are kind of in a bit of a hard place with rally games, in that if you do real world locations, you probably have the licensing issue, though I guess they could have just done any real world location. But if you have real world locations, the problem is, you know, it turns into hill climb very quickly because people learn those tracks, and also they have to actually go out and model those tracks, which can be quite time consuming. So that's difficult to do and end up with something that's effectively a rally game. But then on this auto generation side, sure, you get tracks that are different, you get surprise corners, but really I think after an hour or so you've effectively learnt the different types of corners that are going to appear, and then it doesn't feel like a completely unique environment because you start seeing bits of track repeated, even in a single session on a single track. If you do a sort of medium long to long end circuit, you'll see the same bits of track 2, 3, sometimes 5 times, and you know so I don't think it actually achieves what it really set out to achieve. I think people that spend the time on this, in the same way that it did on Dirt Rally, will learn the various corners in the different environments, making the fact that it's an auto-generated circuit effectively redundant, meaning that they probably should have just done manually generated tracks that had actual character and just felt sexy and exciting to drive on in the first place. And I think in terms of immersion, the two biggest factors that really ruin these tracks and make it bland is the first one being the actual road surface, in terms of the camber, the undulations, and the subtleties of the actual track surface that you're driving on are nowhere near as subtle and complex as what's in Dirt Rally. it's all rather flattened out in this. So you just don't get that feel or that drive or that end result that you did in the previous Dirt game, and as a result of that, lack a huge amount of realism. You also, the sides of the tracks tend to be the similar sort of width and generally wider in some ways, but with the same sort of features either side of it in terms of where the road actually meets the environment. But then, in addition to that, because of the autogen, obviously they can't have the co-driver be someone that's recorded doing the track as they did with Dirt Rally, where they had the driver actually in a motion rig, and the result of that with the co-driver in Dirt Rally was he had little accents in his voice, the pacing of the corners and everything was spot on, and that just really pushed you into the game and made it super immersive, whereas now the co-driver it's like I've got Microsoft Sam. Turn right, left 6, over crest. That was more Stephen Hawkins, but that's what it feels like, and it doesn't have the character again. It's just super bland. And also, again, when it comes to those corners, it seems that you get these call outs that are again rather vague, because it doesn't have the tight corners. You'll get all these one rights or tight, technically hairpin corners, and they're not really hairpin corners. They're more sort of more nuanced corners, which you would normally take with a bit of speed through. So it seems like they've had to sacrifice certain types of corners in some occasions. I mean, there are some proper hairpin corners on the set piece bits of circuit which you notice repeating, but you know, it really, in my opinion, it's a bit of a failure. Technically, nicely tried. Well, I mean, I do welcome the innovation. I appreciate it's probably really hard for them to actually develop and get it as good as they did, but in terms of end result, totally entitled and massively spoiled, completely ungrateful that I live in a first world country completely by chance and I'm not drinking poisoned water from a river. From that perspective, I just, you know, it's not tickling my pickle, especially given, I mean, I wouldn't even, if Dirt Rally hadn't come out, you know, I'd just be playing RBR or something. I wouldn't even notice. I'd be like, you know, it's another sort of console racer game. It's fine, whatever. I'll ignore it. The Dirt Rally was so good, and then this it's not the follow-on that I think it's not the follow-on I was expecting. I'm not sure if it's the following many people are expecting. But that's just the tracks. Now, when we actually get into the handling, I actually think CodeMasters have actually done a really good job in many ways in improving certain aspects of the handling. I think the most noticeable aspects of the handling that have improved are the sense of mass of the car, the general nature of how the cars handle on braking, and how the sort of rear end is squirmy, and how the car goes over bumps, and how the car generally behaves at higher speeds. Also, tarmac, although in my opinion, you know, it's nothing near any of the sort of road-based driving simulators out there, and I still think RBR actually does tarmac better, but compared to Dirt Rally, the tarmac in general is a lot better. Car's a little bit floaty on it, but you know, it has that CodeMasters physics feel to it, but it doesn't feel broken like the previous Dirt Rally or the previous CodeMasters games on tarmac, or even games like Grid and what have you by CodeMasters. The tarmac actually feels quite good and moderately enjoyable for the most part in Dirt 4. The aspects of the physics that I think drive me absolutely insane, and again, it's something that makes the game bland again. What is it with CodeMasters going totally bland? I think the staff have been forced to eat porridge for a year or something, and something's happened. By default, all the cars are set up to be complete bricks in mud, and they just understeer. You can change this yourself. You can set them up, lock the rear diff, move the brake bias a bit behind, and change some of the aligning and stuff. You can reduce the understeer quite a moderate amount, I'd say. Mostly, though, you find that you can reduce the understeer on the braking, but when it comes to how the cars handle on the throttle, they just all tend to go to understeer, and they all tend to pendulum out of oversteer into understeer. It's like the cars are just they've got some weird fear of oversteer driving. And for me, I'm someone that really likes to drive with oversteer, and I just find that enjoyable. Again, it just makes it really bland. Now, I appreciate a lot of modern rally cars are actually set up in reality to be quite neutral, and the expectation is that the driver will use the handbrake or really chuck the car in to get it into corners, or they've just set the car up for that specific environment, so that it's kind of neutral, but it will turn in. It just goes where they point it, because modern rally cars are absolutely mental precisionally engineered pieces of equipment. But I would have thought with the older cars in Dirt Rally, and if you wanted to, you should still be able to pop the back out and completely drive it on the throttle, especially on gravel stages and dirt stages. Even on those, the back is just super reluctant, regardless of setup, to really just stay out and be balanced on the throttle. In contrast to Dirt Rally, where you could completely balance a car and do these monstrous power slides around corners, which, some ways might have been a little bit unrealistic, but it was fun, so who cares? These games aren't really the most realistic of simulators anyway, when you compare them to, your hardcore PC simulators, even like Live for Speed and Automobilista on their stages where they've got a bit of off-road on them. So, it's about what's fun and what's realistic in terms of the overall envelope, what gives the player control of the cars in general, and how much ply you've got and what you can do with it. So the end result is, in Dirt 4, a lot of the crashes and accidents I have tend to be a combination of the pace notes, which you can have called out really early, but then they're too early for some corners and it just feels off. But you can have them called out early to avoid certain types of corner, and generally be more prepared for understeer once you've learnt the types of corner that tend to appear. But the accidents I tend to have are either understeering going into a corner, which is kind of fine because maybe you could argue you just went into the corner too fast, but even understeering going out of a corner, or not being able to actually rely on using the four-wheel drive to sort of power the car out of corners, as you would expect. Maybe not with all the rally cars in the game, but some cars, I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong about rally, but I was under the impression that certain era of rally driving, sort of around about the 2000s period especially, part of the driving was to get the car thrown in and lined up so that when you put the power on, all four wheels are pushing into the gravel to get the traction and get the car out of the corner. In this, when you're in a general slide and you've actually managed to get the car into oversteer, it seems like the cars aren't particularly happy to bite in or maintain that oversteering in a usable way, and you just tend to get understeer, basically. The end result is bland, annoying understeer for the most part. So again, that handling aspect makes it really it just makes it irritating for me, and really hampers the enjoyment of the game in many ways when it comes to the core handling, and that's on gravel, wet, tarmac, everything really. So I don't know what they could do to improve that. Maybe slightly lower grip on the for the rears, but the thing is, I know a lot of people arguing online say there's just too much grip. The thing is, it's never that simple. It's never a case of too much grip, too little grip. It will turn out there's a whole load of complicated aspects of physics that go in to produce the end result of a lot of understeer or too much grip on the rear. If you just reduce the grip of the tracks, for example, or the tyres overall, you might end up inducing more understeer because the fronts still wouldn't be able to grip. So it's probably a really complicated thing to actually improve on, and I don't know if CodeMasters will improve on it. We'll see. But again, as I say, it's just something that, for my entitled first world, incredibly lucky to be where I am self, really just mutes the game and damages my enjoyment of it. I would much rather be playing RBR or the older Dirt Rally again. So that's the general handling. Every car is effectively a front-wheel drive car. That's what it feels like. Just to reiterate, as I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily a bad game. I mean, I am approaching this from a sort of spent too much time and too much money with driving simulators. So bear that in mind. I could see people playing this with a gamepad, especially using the gamer mode, and even playing the gamer mode with the steering wheel is quite fun. It depends what you go into this expecting in many ways. If you're just expecting something more realistic than previous Dirt 2 and 3 games, but not necessarily like a sort of hardcore simulator rally game, then I think you'd probably enjoy it. I think the best feature in the game, or why, if I was going to play this a lot, would be if I was probably playing it with a gamepad or semi-casually with a steering wheel, but then to do the multiplayer with the generated tracks with a group of friends and just see who can win the stages. I think that's probably the most enjoyable and unique thing that Dirt 4 brings to the table. But then at the same time, from my perspective, I can't help but think, how good would it be if it was just more like Dirt Rally and the stages were a little bit more interesting, and the handling was a little bit more interesting. But there you go. That's just my view on that. Now, lastly, and this is where I don't think CodeMasters have no excuse. Send them off to North Korea, put them in one of the camps there until they work this out. The general interface when it comes to controllers, first of all, the default force feedback, granted, they have got a bunch of default controllers set up, so when you plug a wheel in, they've got like 30 or so steering wheels all set up, so when you plug it in, it does work straight away out of the box, which is nicely done. That's good. But the force feedback for those defaults is terrible. They've set it up. I mean, I tried it with the T300 as well as getting it working with our direct drive wheel, which you have to do some editing, but you know, it's a niche wheel, so it's not too much of a problem. But with the T300, the default force feedback, there's tons of dampening on it, and the force feedback comes across as super vague. So why wouldn't they make it so that the default force feedback takes some of the best force feedback settings from the community, what the community did with Dirt Rally, and so that people in the game that don't have a clue can have something that actually feels nice out of the box. There's going to be loads of players that get a steering wheel and play this and they're just like, well, I don't understand what's going on, because the force feedback's that bad, it actually makes it harder to play. So, oh dear, I don't know what's gone on there. And yeah, the actual layout of the interface is, you know, it's pure consolitis. You're going to have to go up and down through menus. They do have a mouse on the menus though. Congratulations for including a mouse. I do appreciate that. But it's fast. It's obviously been designed for a gamepad, and it's generally faster to actually use the arrow keys and the enter and whatever on PC to change options and things. It's not a nightmare, but I actually prefer the interface again in Dirt Rally. They gradually improved it, and it was functional. It's a reasonable compromise between a console interface and a sort of PC game interface. Why not just use something like that? It's like there were so many things I feel that CodeMasters learnt with Dirt Rally, and then they've just sort of abandoned them for no real reason. But there you go. That's games development. It's all exciting. It's all up in the air. I'm sure, you know, the developers here probably were under a really tight deadline. I get the impression that, you know, there'll have been a date set to have this game finished, and they had to get it done, and so obviously content, decisions, choices and everything all gets hammered out into that time period, and the people working on these games are insanely talented, work ridiculously hard, so you know, I do feel a little bit guilty when I'm critical of games, because I can understand what it's like when you're making them. It's, you know, you want to smash your face into a brick wall. And I'm pretty sure under under the conditions that they probably had to produce what they've done, they probably did a bloody amazing job. But, you know, from an entitled first world gamer end result perspective, it ends up coming across as what's going on. Blame management for not giving enough time, or what, you know, management choices. It's never the worker's fault. It's always management. And then on the management perspective, it's budgetary constraints. Blame not having enough money. Everyone's got an excuse. Fantastic. So as a final conclusion, though, as I say, I'm disappointed, maybe it's my fault for building up expectations due to how good Dirt Rally was, I think it's still worth getting. I'm not sure if it's worth spending the full RRP on it at this point in time. I think if you can get it for sort of 25 quid or so, then yeah, you know, there is a lot in there that you can find really enjoyable, even on the simulation side. These snow stages especially I find probably the best, because the snow makes everything look bland anyway, so you won't notice repeating things, and it's a bit more slidey and more exciting in that regard. And they also improved the way the snow berms at the side of the track work. So, you know, as I said, there are a lot of improvements in this over Dirt Rally, but it's just a step forwards and a step backwards. It's like doing a ballroom dance, basically. That's CodeMasters Games for you. But I think that covers our initial first impressions of the game. We'll do another video if you want to see it. Let me know if you want some more mental gamer muscle rants about games, videos on this channel. We can just call them honest rants. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on Twitch. We do live streaming of games and everything. Assetto Corsa, iRacing, and we will be playing this live streaming. But yes, subscribe, like, drop us some salty comments. I've got my chips ready. Until the next video, thanks for watching, everybody, and goodbye.